Hello there. According to the latest news, the UK may well be completely free of the European Union a little sooner than we expect. The projected withdrawal phase of about 2 years that the Prime Minister Theresa May set out in her Florence speech last September looks more and more like it will end some 3 months early on the 31st of December 2020. This will tie in with what the EU chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier has previously said and should keep the UK's involvement in the EU well clear of the next Brussels budget period. Speaking to The Sun, a Whitehall source directly involved with the UK's exit planning said, "The EU timetable is the working assumption, and no one seems too upset by that." And the paper also quotes Iain Duncan-Smith as saying, "The sooner we can get this done, the better." And he added, "What everyone needs is certainty, not a never-endum." And it's not a moment too soon, as Boris Johnson is expected to say in his Valentine's Day speech tomorrow, the aim of the European Union is not free trade, it is political unity. The Foreign Secretary has previously called the EU an ends-driven teleological construction, saying about EU regulation that it is not primarily there for business convenience. It is not primarily there to create opportunities for companies to trade freely across frontiers. It is primarily there to create a united EU. In his speech, Boris will call for those on both the Leave and Remain sides to drop those affiliations and labels and unite behind Brexit Britain. Boris Johnson's parliamentary aide, the MP for Bournemouth West, Conor Burns, expanded on the Foreign Secretary's upcoming speech, saying, "If pessimism were a disease, Boris Johnson would be immune. He thinks the country made a decision. The country was told whatever was decided, we would abide by it. I think he wants us now to leave the labels of Remain and Leave behind and unite in the opportunities that Brexit presents for Britain." So there you go. Let's get out and let's get on. Writing in The Spectator, the Tory MP for Wokingham John Redwood has taken a good swipe at those pessimistic Brexit forecasts that people are interpreting as financial meltdown unless we keep a tight hold of the EU single market security blanket. Firstly, he asked the obvious question. Why are some people taking those 15-year projections so seriously when the short-term forecasts they produced were so hopelessly inaccurate? He then goes on to point out that the reports are not saying we will be worse off than we are now, they are claiming we will be a little behind where we would be if we'd stayed in the EU. This is an estimate of slower growth, not an absolute decline, he writes. If we carry on growing on average at 2% per annum over the 15 years, we will be 34.6% better off at the end of the period. These forecasts suggest that might only be 32.6%, or on a worst case, 26.6% better off. The 2% figure over 15 years is a little more than 0.1% per annum, or a rounding error. Then, he says, why do the authors automatically assume staying in the EU is risk-free? What if there is a change in the tax regime? What if Corbyn gets in? What if the EU, or the US for that matter, alters their monetary policy? He also asks why the report says we would lose out by leaving the EU but staying in the single market. If, as they seem to think, the single market is the good bit of the EU, surely staying in it means no loss, he asks. And he finishes by asking, where is the gain shown in the forecast from the UK spending its own money where it wants to? Good assessment and a good set of questions that should put paid to those discredited Brexit forecasts. And for those who think that the EU will steal business from the City of London, the chances are that if trade goes anywhere, it will be to the USA, says The Telegraph. The article says that if Emmanuel Macron is dragging out the negotiations in the hope that finance firms will jump ship to Paris, he will be disappointed. And the reason is that Donald Trump is deregulating and lowering taxes, making the US very attractive. The United States is now one of the most tax competitive places to do business in the world. And many city firms fear that, unless the UK post-Brexit has the flexibility to adapt regulation and taxation to keep business in London, it will flee to New York rather than Paris or Frankfurt, says The Telegraph. And one thing's for sure, less red tape and less tax are not things that are high on the EU agenda. So, far from leaving the EU being the danger, remaining in the EU could well have strangled the city with red tape, tax and costs. So, what are your thoughts on an early Brexit release date, John Redwood's assessment of the Brexit forecasts, and the chances of the EU stealing city business? Please leave a comment below. Thank you. Please do like and share this video. And also subscribe to my channel. And when subscribing, please do remember to press on the little bell next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get an alert every single time I put up a new video. Thank you very much for watching.